Hello. In this activity, we'll take a look at two of the most powerful and basic tools in Tableau, and they all relate to filtering. So one of the most important things you'll do with data is implement a series of filters to visualize the kinds of things you're really looking for. So let's start with an import and then start looking at filtering. So I'm going to connect to a data set in Excel. And in this one, I want to look at libraries around the world. Libraries around the world. Once again, now I'm connecting to a data set. I can see if I take a quick look. And there, that's 17 rows. That's one sheet. This is the other. This is not what I'm looking for. I want the country data. And in this Excel file, we see that countries are listed. Each country is grouped into a region. And we see the expenditures as calculated and converted into US dollars, the total libraries that exist in each country, the total number of librarians in each country, and the total volumes and total users of libraries in each country based on survey data. So if we go to sheet 1, we see how it's divided into dimensions and measures. And one of the things we might want to see is, first, each region and each country. And we might even want to see these listed this way. Now we know that's a lot to put on a horizontal. So one thing we probably want to filter down is region. So if we drag region over to filters, what we'll see is when we drag a dimension into filters, we get the ability to select any individual or all of these areas. We can select them from a list. We can create a custom value list. So if we had custom values we wanted to add, we could. We could always use all. We could create wildcards. So basically we could say that each filter or each item should contain a certain value or word. So if we were looking at, say, a sales chart, and we were saying that we were filtering out in every item that matched the descriptor music would be filtered out. So if we have a number of things related to music and we only wanted music related items, we could use that as the wildcard. We can offer conditions. So by field, we could say we only want to look at countries or regions that have a certain volume or lower than a certain volume. So we could put conditions on it. Or we could also just filter out and say we just want the top 10. And then find a way to filter it by count. So let's start with this first. We'll select all. So we have our filter and our region. Try that back here. And I think I want to probably put these in rows. And then I take region and filter, and I want all and click OK. Now, I already know that I want to have some sort of selector. So I can just go like this and show filter. Notice how the filter card shows up here. So here I have the option of checking or unchecking all, or I can be more specific and say I only want to examine libraries in the Middle East. So only countries contained in the Middle East will be visible. And so I can allow my users to have a very customized interaction with data. I can edit my title to this filter. I can customize it. So let's say I didn't want to have all as a choice. I could go into here. I could customize. And let me just expand this. So I could go in here and I could customize. I could show the search button, include execute, filter types. But notice here it says show all value. If I uncheck that, notice the all value is no longer included here. And I can add it back by just rechecking it. Let's say I don't like having this displayed on the right panel. I want it closer to the data itself. So I can just drag that card over here. Or drag it over here. So you just grab it at the top menu bar and drag it over, and there you go. Okay, so if we remember, we have dimensions and measures. And dimensions are categorical data, right? Measures are actually measured or counted data. So we have countries, we have regions. What numbers are we looking for? So for example, what if the question we're given to answer is, what are the total volumes available in these libraries? All we would do is take total volumes, which is a measure and a number, and we could put it right in here into columns. And so we can also structure this in a way. So let's say we want to, this list is exhaustive, right? Let's say we only want to compare that list between the countries of Africa. And so here I select Africa. And then I can even arrange it so that I start from the most to the fewest. Then what I might need to do is, notice how we have these bars and they get kind of tiny, and we have this little scale, and it's a powerful visual, but we probably want our numbers in there, right? Okay. See this little text box here, this T with the dotted box, show mark labels? If we press on that button, the numbers of their total volumes shows up. Now let's say I wanted to compare expenditures and correlate that to volumes. So I go here in expenditures and I can just drag it to another column. And then I can once again arrange it this way. So what we see is that not every, right? So in this case we know that Turkey has 7 million volumes, but has, right? Or I'm sorry, Tunisia has 7 million volumes, right? And spends $482.3 million on libraries. But there are other countries with more volumes, such as 11 million volumes, and spend less money than, say, Tunisia. So we can filter on this again. So we see that this is fairly in line. South Africa has a high number of volumes and has the highest expense. But here, look at this. Egypt has the second highest by less than half. In Africa, 20.9 million volumes, and spends $516,747 on expenditures. So very interesting. So now suppose we wanted to do a visualization where, okay, we looked at total volumes, we looked at expenditures, but suppose the question was, how many librarians on average exist per library, and how many users per library, and how many users to a librarian? And this would be expressed as a ratio. And we'll see this come up again. So if I want to erase these or get rid of them, I just drag them off the columns. And I'm back to my region and country. Now let's say I wanted to figure out what the total number of libraries. Let me put that back in. Okay, the total number of libraries. Who has the most libraries? South Africa, Egypt, Ghana, Sudan. Okay. Now, let's ask ourselves, how many librarians do we have per library? So these might be expressed as a ratio. So what we would do is create a calculated column. Notice that our measures don't have that value already in it. We have to create that value by taking data we already have and creating a new measure that contains that data. So what we need to do is create a calculated field. So we want to look at the number of librarians per library. So we need to create a calculated field. So we go to the analysis menu bar up on the top menu bar where it's of Tableau, where it says Tableau File Data Worksheet Dashboard Story Analysis, and we go Create Calculated Field. So a calculated field is a pretty powerful option in Tableau, and in it we also can choose from a number of pretty common and popular functions. And in this case, what we want to do is we want to call this the number of librarians per library on average. Right? So we're just looking for that. So we take the number of libraries and divide that by the total number of librarians. Click OK. Now it's created a new measure number, and that's our calculated field. We just drag the pill into columns. What we see is we get a second and what you'll notice is that we got it backwards. Oh no, what do we do? This is horrible. I have to redo this whole chart. No, Tableau is powerful. So if I was just to go back and go to Analysis and go to Edit Calculated Field, and I go to Librarians per Library, and I look, oh, boy, I reversed that. That's kind of silly. So I want total librarians divided by total libraries. Okay. So if I take total librarians and I divide that number by total libraries, now I go, okay. What? Now what we get is a very different answer. So something has gone wrong here. What's going on? Let's take a look at our data set. get rid of the nulls. Okay, so this is 4. There we go. So there were some null values in there, which means that there were no records, and so we want to make sure that we have have only places with records, so we're accurate. So here we can filter on this the total libraries from in a descending fashion. So we know South Africa has the most libraries, 11,406 libraries, and what we see is that there are 0.205 librarians per library, which means that there are librarians being shared among certain libraries, which is what it means. Now the question is, notice that when you have smaller numbers of libraries, Equatorial Guinea has 11 total libraries and has 3.364 librarians per library. Okay, that makes sense on average. So here we go. And we can sort it this way. So the most librarians per library is in Nigeria with 4.535 librarians per library. There are 269 libraries. There that. Now let's take a look and throw in, let's say we want to compare this to expenditures in US dollars. So we put that on this bar. Notice the expenditures. So Nigeria has a lot of librarians. It's got 269 libraries. Let's get rid of the nulls. It spends $6.6 million in US dollars per year on libraries. So it seems to invest quite a bit of money in staff, I'm assuming. And we can also take a look and sort here. Now, if we wanted to change our view and go from Africa and examine Middle East, we could do the same. Israel spends the most. Who has the best number or the highest number of librarians per library? It's Bahrain. 209 libraries. Almost one librarian per library. It means libraries are sharing staff, which probably means that some libraries are not open every day. Who has the most total libraries in the Middle East? Iran. So what you see is very quickly through simple filtering, we can start to get important snapshots of different data sets and start answering some questions pretty rapidly. So if we're looking at this quick visualization, not only are we seeing the visualization that we could share with someone, but we're also being, really starting to be able to dial in on some of the detail and starting to get some answers to our basic data questions. This is pretty powerful, pretty valuable, and pretty fast. Let's say we also wanted a slider, something to control, that said, you know what, we only want to deal, so let's say I select all regions again, and now what I want to do is only look at and filter on expenditures. I only want to find, if I take expenditures and I put this right into filter, and what I want to do, I'll look at sum, and next. In this filter view, I get to choose a range of values. The minimum number of US dollars spent, and the maximum number, and I can say at least. So I only want to look at libraries that spend at least, and I can set an amount. Let's say we only want to look at libraries that spend at least $10 million. So we'll say there. And click OK. And so I also want to show that filter. And drag it here. And if I drag the filter, there we go. So quickly, if I drag the filter, see how very quickly it's managed to limit based on the expenditures. We see that North America, the United States, and Canada spends $3.755 billion. The United States, $21.7 billion. With 101,000 libraries. And so what we see is we see the region, the country, and so what we can do is that's one way of doing it. We can also undo this filter, reset it. Let's go here and edit the filter. We can just give everyone a range of values. Click OK. And then here, the slider will show all regions. We can have all regions, right? And now what we want to show is the number of libraries, or the libraries that spend $10 million. I'm sorry, that was 10 billion. And here we go. So, sliders can be helpful. We can also look at the lowest of the low. So we can max it out. And the number on the right will show us. So who gets to spend less than $1 billion? There's 172 million. So between the lowest and there, so if we filter expenditures, we can also filter from the lowest to the most. We see Equatorial Guinea has the lowest expenditure, Mali, and then on up in this region. And notice it's aggregated by region or sorted by region. So it's not a list of all the countries in a row, it's a list by region and then ranks the countries in there. So quickly you can see that filters can be pretty powerful and allow you to sort data in a number of interesting ways. To answer questions. You also see how you can use filters and the filter cards to empower your data consumers to play with data, to make choices, and to basically sort through it so they can analyze data to answer their questions in a more customized way. And that is the power of filters in Tableau.